Does she have to sign it? Welcome, Chatham, to the May 21, 2024 meeting of the Chatham Select Board. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chair. Seeing none, I will proceed. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023, signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31, 2025. This meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491, #, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. With that, I will start the meeting with the establishment of a quorum. Select Board members.
Present.
Select Board Member Dyken.
Present.
Select Board Member Davis.
Present.
And the chair is present. Select Board Member Nicastro.
Present.
Thank you. A quick review, and I'll try to do this the way you have always done it. Corey, if I screw it up, you can help me get over the first time. Tonight we have two sets of minutes, April 30 and May 14. We have public announcements and agenda requests. We have a public hearing with respect to a utility installation of conduit from a proposed handhole for a customer-installed handhole at 229 Main Street from Eversource. We then will have public comments on the business agenda. This evening, I'm going to rearrange the business agenda just slightly. We've had a request that the public be allowed to participate alongside of the board on the review and discussion and follow-up items from the 2024 annual town meeting. And I'm going to move that down from the first item to the, I guess it'll be now the third item, so that we can get the more routine items out of the way, and then the things that only involve the board will be, we'll start with that discussion of the town meeting. We'll also consider a use of town property a request for the town hall basement on December 31, 2024 for first night. Item C is considering a donation acceptance for Kate Gould Park, some planters from the Garden Club and the Chatham Chamber of Commerce. And then we will, as I said, have the town meeting discussion, followed by a discussion of Select Board liaison assignments, and we'll close up with Select Board Summer 2024 meeting schedule. And with that, I will invite comments and/or motions on the April 30 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of minutes for April 30th, 2024.
Do I have any comments on the April 30 minutes? Mr. Nicastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple, they're mostly typos, which Kathy may already have caught. On page 2, at the very bottom, there is something left out on the motion. I think you caught that. Then on page 4, second full paragraph, Mr. Shell made a motion. Town council is misspelled, C-O-U-N-S-C-L. On page 5, right in the middle, Attorney Bill Riley, third line, we should insert the word commission after district. And then on page 8, I had a question. This has to do with the very end. The board entered into executive session. I didn't check prior versions to see how we've done this, but you have an indication of the motion to adjourn. I don't know that that has ever been disclosed, except when the actual executive session minutes. We simply, I think, say that board ended executive session at whatever time. Well, you already have it. The board adjourned at 6:55. This motion would be included in the executive session minutes. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
It's just a housekeeping, but participating from the board, I just want it noted that member Shireen Davis participated in the 4:30 PM executive meeting only.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Did you have something, Jeff?
Nope.
Oh, sorry. Select Board Member Metters.
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Abstain.
Select Board Member Nacastro.
Aye.
And the chair says yes. Aye. Okay, the minutes of May 14.
Move approval?
Second.
Any comments? If not, yes, Mr. Nacastro.
Thank you. On page 2, I just have a couple. Page 2, under public announcements, just wanted to clarify with some edits here what actually I said. In the second line, where it said, toward the end, includes, I would insert responses to the comments made at the public forum, and then I would strike the phrase incorporated into the design. And then on page 5, just a typo on third paragraph, veterans, we should insert the word field in the motion, veterans field. And lastly, on page 7, for the fifth full paragraph, second line, before Chatham Council on Aging, I would insert Director Lacrosse or the Council on Aging, and I would insert Board. And then in the fourth line of that paragraph, I would strike, I'm sorry, in the fifth line, I would strike the word given and substitute commended for her hard work. And my last item is on that same page. I don't have an amendment to a correction to the minutes, but we had a request and an offer from Elaine Gibbs that her written statement that she read to the board be attached to the minutes. So I would request that that be attached to the minutes.
Okay, so we'll, any comment or objection to that? So we'll attach that to your motion to approve with that attachment?
So amended.
And the second,
Second.
Mr. Metters,
Aye.
Mr. Dykens.
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Nacastro?
Aye.
And Mr. Shell says aye. Okay. Public announcements and agenda requests. Start with the board. Mr. Metters?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a brief moment to thank all those who went out on the lovely weather on Thursday and cast their votes on the various candidates of the various individuals on the ballot this year. I mean, obviously, I'm particularly grateful of my results that I'm still around, but I just want to appreciate those people who stepped forward and exercised the right to vote, so thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
This is just for town manager, acting town manager, who I talked to over the weekend about this issue, but I wanted to bring it to attention because I think there was a few people that were talking about it in social media. And it's about the opening dates for the downtown public bathrooms. Last weekend, we were at a restaurant downtown behind the Orpheum, and the parking lots were absolutely packed. And as we're having our lunch, there must have been, and this was like 1 p.m., after talking to the staff, there must have been 10 to 12 people that had come in that weren't customers requesting to use the restroom. And as the town is bustling and the parking lots are, getting full and whatnot, I think we need to assess when the town's getting busy now. Is it simply just around Memorial Day, or is it more the month of May? So I would ask that we look at whether to open our town facilities earlier than later. Thank you.
Good point.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time downtown this weekend, and it was mobbed all weekend, so.
What's today, too?
Any others from the board? Mr. Oppenheim?
Thank you, David Oppenheim. Two agenda requests. The first one is, it's an agenda request so that we can get clarification. It would be regarding Stepping Stones Road property and 127 Old Harbor Road and what's going to happen. I don't know. I think they're sitting there waiting to be maybe an RFP or something like that. So I think, we're just in the middle of dealing with RFPs on two properties, the former Buckley property and Meeting House. But I don't think these things should just wait. We need to continue making progress. So I'd like to see an agenda item to, so that we're all clear on what the procedure is. Is it going to the Affordable Housing Trust to handle the RFPs, or is it something that's going to be done cooperative? They're owned differently. They have different requirements available to them, or options available to them, and so I'd like to see that on sooner rather than later. So that's one.
Thank you.
And the second one is, and this has been coming up for a couple times, I think there needs to be an agenda item and a serious discussion about how people are going to pay for their hookups, their sewer hookups. And I'm not just talking about grinder pumps. I know the Waterways Advisory Committee, Water and Sewer Advisory Committee is working and looking at the issue with grinder pumps and things like that, and hopefully that will come to some resolution at some point. But what's changed a lot is there are people now getting their requirements to hook up. I believe when it passes, at some point in time when it's approved, you're given 2 years. I believe it's 2 years to hook up. And even if it's gravity, let's leave the grinder pumps out of the whole thing. When this all started, when we approved this, 12, 13, 14 years ago, and going back even pre-pandemic, if you had a house close to the road and you were hooking up gravity feed and you didn't have to change your plumbing, it really wasn't, it's expensive, but it wasn't, an enormous amount of money. Like everything else, that's changed. I've had several people that I've spoken to and people that have brought it to my attention, not really understanding process and everything else. You can now be looking, if everything is easy and it's gravity and your plumbing's going out the right direction to the front of the house and there's not a lot of landscaping, you can probably do it for $5,000 or $6,000. If you have to change your plumbing and reverse it, if you have huge landscaping issues, grading issues and things, it can start to run $15,000 to $20,000. It's nothing to do with grinder pumps or generators or you don't have to change your electrical things. So I think I've always thought we should be able to have an option of doing this by a betterment. I think we should look into betterment options. It's done all over the place. It was discussed and it was told it's too complicated. I don't even understand that idea. Betterments are done all over the place, whether it's for water or sewer process. For a lot of people, they can't come up with $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000. They can't get to the bank. They don't have a HELOC or something where they have a line of credit. Interest rates are very expensive. People don't want to jeopardize their mortgages and things like that. So there's no cost to once it's set up, there's basically no cost to the town. The town pays for it. It's put on your tax bill. It's secure. And the benefit to the taxpayer is they get to pay for it over many years, 20 years or something along those lines, and they're paying the interest rate the town's paying, instead of the interest rates we're hearing about. Mortgages are now, what, 7.5% and things. So I think that this should go on your, I mean, there are a lot of people that have been noticed that they need to do it. A lot of people don't want to come to this body and talk about their personal finances, which you can certainly understand. So it just makes sense for town government to do this. And again, it's not all over the country, it's not all over Massachusetts. And perhaps before you actually, if you set an agenda item, perhaps at that date that you discuss this, you may have information on what the process would be if you chose to do it, and what the methodology is, so it could be resolved fairly quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. I see two hands, I'm sorry, Dee Dee Holt, here in the room in person.
Thank you. Good evening. Dee Dee Holt, Chatham. I am an agenda item request, and I represent nobody except me for this request. I think at town meeting, the discussion regarding Article 40, the airport, a gentleman who identified himself as a 92-year-old longtime resident either made a suggestion or asked the question what is the best use for 100-plus acres? And if you were at the meeting, and there was an enthusiastic response to that matter. And so the more I thought about it, I thought, well, why not? Why not take a look at this? Times have changed a lot. Certainly our needs have changed. What hasn't changed is the amount of land we have. As a matter of fact, we're losing a little bit to erosion. So it made sense to me that it was about time. I don't think a study of the best use of that land has been done I think one was done a long time ago. I don't know how independent it was, but it seems to me it's time to look at that again. I mean, we have a lot of needs now. So my I guess, suggestion for an agenda item is that the board consider a discussion of if that's even worth going out and commissioning an independent study to look at or not. So that's my request, that it be discussed and see if it's of any merit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? If not, I see two hands raised online. I'm going to guess that NS might be Ms. Stern. Is that right?
That's correct.
You're up.
Okay. Nicole Stern, good evening, Select Board, guests, public. I am asking that as a newly organized board, you will, as soon as possible, vote to allow public participation during the discussion of agenda items, not out of context at the beginning of a meeting. I am requesting an agenda item including that, and an opportunity for answering questions from citizens. As you look back to last Tuesday's annual meeting, I hope you received the message that so many of us tried to send through our votes. We are looking for transparency, honesty, and the opportunity to participate. Public forums and hearings should be held before you vote on an issue. The public should be given an opportunity to address articles before they are put on the warrant. The public should be allowed in real time to comment on agenda items at your meetings. Chatham voters want genuine, effective access to the process. I look forward to seeing this request quickly implemented, sending, as our select board, your message to the voters that their participation is valued and respected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stern. And I'm going to guess that the SB that has his hand up is Mr. Buckley.
That's right. Good guess. Yes, Steve Buckley, I have a request for an agenda item, and that is regarding official email accounts. It was not too long ago that the select board was using their personal email addresses for official business, And I don't, like I said, I forget exactly when it got switched over, but you all have official email addresses that end with chatham-ma.gov. And so you're not commingling your personal correspondence by email in with your official correspondence by email, which is great. And that's the way it should be for any government employee. And I would like to suggest that anyone who is conducting official business as a committee member also have the same a privilege, I guess, or the idea being that there be a separate official email account that they will receive their official correspondence concerning official business. And they won't be subject to public records requests for their personal email addresses. So anyway, that's what I hope put on there. And I would think that the bonus would be that you might get more people applying for some of the empty spots on the committees if they knew that that was the case. They'd get an official email address, even if it wasn't permanent, of course, only while they were committee members. So I'd like that to be an agenda item, unless the town manager can do that with a wave of the hand or whatever administratively, then I'd like to be a topic of discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. Anything else from online or in the room? I want to add one comment of a sort of a nature of, not a request, but I just want to follow on Corey's expression of appreciation for being elected. I was pleased to see that I think we had about 1,000 votes. I was happy to see that obviously the candidates that won, congratulations, my colleagues, Mr. Nicastro and Mr. Metters. But I also want to say to Mr. Phillips, thanks for running, and I hope that bespeaks increased participation by folks from your age cohort. So thank you. On that note, I will turn to the public hearing. Could we read the notice of public hearing, please?
My pleasure. Town of Chatham Select Board Public Hearing Notice. The Chatham Select Board will hold a public hearing at 5:30 on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024, to consider a petition from NStar Electric Company doing business as Eversource Energy to install 40 feet of 1/4 or 1-4. It's separated, so I can't tell. Quarter-inch, I guess. Conduit from proposed handhole 16-H3A to customer-installed handhole 16H3B at 229 Main Street, Chatham. The public is welcome to attend the meeting in person or participate via link in the meeting's posted agenda. All interested parties are encouraged to participate. Chatham Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. Do we have somebody here from Eversource to present
I
online?
believe you have Julie Longa online.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. So good evening. My name is Julie Longer, and I'm representing Eversource. And again, Eversource is proposing to install approximately 40 feet of 1-4-inch conduit under Main Street from the proposed handhold 16/H3A to customer-installed handhold 16/H3B. This work is necessary to provide underground service for the home at 229 Main Street.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none?
There's one online, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I didn't see. I don't recognize PR, but you're recognized to speak or ask.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Pam Runquist, thus the PR. So I am the daughter, or one of the daughters of Mary Ann Gray, who owned the property at 233 Main Street. And my mother has passed away, but the property is now owned by our family trust. And we got a notice about this hearing, but the diagram of the properties shows another name as the owner, or is listed as the owner of our 233 Main Street. There's a name of Daniel Dimitri, and we don't know who that is. And my sister, who's the administrator of the trust, who unfortunately is traveling today, so couldn't be on, she has been trying to call both Eversource and the city assessor's office to find out where that name came from, the Daniel Dimitri. So it's not, we're mainly just concerned about why this name popped up on this plot, this diagram of the properties, when that isn't somebody who we know who it is.
Can I get some help here?
Mr. Chairman, I'm actually checking online. I'm checking
Okay,
the census databases
okay.
to see if I can
All right.
figure this out.
All right, so we're making an inquiry online, if you'll bear with us momentarily. Any other comments or questions from the public? How did you get notice of this if it wasn't addressed to you?
Yeah, so good question. So it was addressed to Daniel Dimitri, but sent to my sister's address. So,
So the London, Ohio address is your sister?
correct, yes. So that
Oh.
address is correct. It's just the name that
It's
is
the name.
disconcerting to us because we don't know who that is.
Mr. Chairman, the
Yes.
assessor's database has the property owner is Beachy Days LLC in New Jersey
At,
at 229 Main Street.
no, we're looking at
Oh, I
233
apologize.
Main
Okay.
Street is the
I
question.
apologize.
Yeah, it's 233 Main Street is the family
Right.
cottage, and it should be the Mary Ann Gray Trust or the family of Mary Ann Gray.
That is the Gray Family Trust on the assessor's database, so perhaps there was a mistake
So
from
it-
Eversource when maybe they didn't change a name, perhaps on, from a different map.
Yep. So do you, apart from that issue, do you have any problem or objection with our approving this installation?
No, we don't. We would just, like to see the diagram updated with the correct name of our trust.
So let me
Our
leave.
family, our family's owned it for a long time, so for decades. So maybe it's just a mistake. It was pulled from another property, but
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
maybe, since we do have a representative from Eversource, maybe that individual can follow up with,
Yeah, I was going to ask that we actually have both our town official, whoever's responsible for providing the list, and Eversource, or Eversource alone if they acquired it on their own, confirm to the actual homeowner that they have the correct address. But subject to that, if there's no objection, I would take a motion.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor, Mr. Metters?
Aye.
Mr. Dykens?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Shell says aye, and Mr. Nacastro?
aye.
Okay, thank you very much for that correction.
yeah, thank you for taking care of it. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
So we will now turn to public comments on the business agenda, except the comments on the annual town meeting, which we'll take in parallel with the discussion. And the business agenda includes discussion of the request for use of town property for first night on December 31. That's item now A. Item B, donation acceptance with respect to some planters for Kate Gould Park. Item D, select board liaison assignments. And D will be, E is select board summer 2024 meeting schedule. Are there any comments from the public, either online or in the room? I don't see any. So I will turn to the first item, considering use of town property, the town hall basement.
Thank you, Chairman Shell. My name is Paul Stuka, and I'm representing First Night Chatham tonight. For the first time in at least 5 years, we will be having First Night on a weekday. And one of the facilities we use is the basement of the town hall. And we would like, if possible, to get access to that room beginning at 11 a.m. to set up. Our first show would be at 1 p.m., and our plans would be to continue through 10 p.m. in the evening, which is the last show of the night. Usually I come to you in October, November to ask for town facilities, but this one we decided that we should address earlier in the year, given that it is a weeknight this year.
Thank you. Do we have any comment from the town staff on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as stated in the agenda report, it is a regular workday for town staff. And so our suggestion was that the group be able to gain access at about 2:00 p.m. to set up, but then start their performances at 4 p.m. only to not distract from the work that's being done at Town Hall. We're certainly happy to revisit that, but that is, something that staff thought would be important, is that, if there's music playing, it may be distracting to some of the workers in the building at that time.
That's not quite what you asked for.
Well, the later we get in, the fewer shows we have. That's the situation.
Well, Mr. Metters?
No, it's been quite a while since we've had to deal with this type of situation for
I haven't
scheduling.
done it in my tenure, and this is my 5th year.
I want to say the first night was allowed to start around like 1 or 2 for performances. I know early in the morning, I guess my feeling is, on that day, most people are probably not looking to do regular business. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it in the morning, because most likely, if the weather's good, town's going to be fairly active, parking, et cetera, et cetera. So I would definitely not want to interrupt regular business in the morning, but I don't think 1 or 2 in the afternoon to start performances is unreasonable for one day, because we can certainly plan accordingly. And it is in the downstairs meeting room area, which is really not a area that we use on a regular business today anyway. It's all our traffic is upstairs. So I don't think it's going to be that unreasonable to go a little bit earlier. And I would support rolling it back a couple hours, but I'm open for discussion.
Dean?
Mr. Chairman, the memo that we got from the staff says, and I'll read it, the pertinent sentence. So in past years, when New Year's Eve falls on a weekday, a regular workday, performances held on Town Hall have not begun until after 4 p.m. when the workday ends, so staff are not interrupted. However, performers were granted access to the space at 2:00 p.m. to set up if necessary. So I don't know how far back that goes. I heard what you said about the past 5 years, but I just think that should be out there as part of the conversation.
Yeah, Shireen, go ahead.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Dean on this, only because, we have people, it's not just about customer services, but people are working on projects or have been delegated to do specific tasks during the day. And, if there's a music playing and let's say it's not acoustical music, then it could be somewhat distracting. I don't think that we should put that out on the town employees. And that's my thoughts.
Paul, are you planning music early in the afternoon, or?
The plan would be to have music. Now, we could change the agenda to
Yeah.
have lighter music earlier in the afternoon, certainly.
Or a puppet show, or, I'm serious.
We could certainly change that.
Yeah.
We could change our scheduling. But, we'll accept whatever you grant us. But the fewer shows we have, obviously, the less attractive it is to the community. But, we could plan activities that are not loud and do not require a lot of sound equipment early in the day.
I think I would like to find a happy resolution here. I am getting the feeling that there hasn't maybe been a full discussion between yourself and the town staff. Am I wrong about that? I mean,
I have not discussed it with the town staff. I think there's been some back and forth on email between our entertainment director and the town staff. And clearly, the request was to have it as early as possible.
Yeah.
But, you know, we understand this is not a usual situation, at least it has not been a usual situation.
I mean, I'll defer to whatever the will of the group is here on this side of the table, but I kind of wonder whether it wouldn't make sense to put this off a week or two and let you have a serious conversation. This is what we'd like to do, hear what their concerns are, and try to come back to us with something that you can all recommend to us.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be
Okay.
great.
We'll look at some activities we may be able to schedule that are not requiring a sound system or certainly loud music.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Next item is a donation acceptance for Kate Gould Park. And we have Angela Bukar to present. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations on your reelection. So as part to the chamber, we have a beautification committee, and we like to reinvest a lot of our surplus into making things pretty. We have partnered with the Garden Club, so I have Catherine with me and also Edie from the Garden Club. We have used their services and in partnership with the beautification this year to decorate and plant flowers in our window boxes on the Main Street booth. As an extension of that, we would like to put 36-inch round planters where you see those two arrows, just opposite of where the apron enters into the park. So imagine it as your front door. And inside of those planters, we have 4 seasonal changes. So in your packets, I believe you saw the quote of what we're looking at. So the initial investment would be the purchase of the actual 36-inch round containers. And those containers are classically rolled planters crafted from strong, durable polyurethane. The planters are recommended for interior and exterior use. Also, the polyurethane will allow for the dirt and things as you know, rain, it'll keep it clean, but aesthetics, it would match and won't chip. So it would actually match the fence by way of really giving a beautiful entrance to the park. We're looking at the initial annual planting season to begin, hopefully right now, before Memorial Day. And in that, you can see the menu of flowers that we're looking at planting for the summer planting. We have fall planting and then winter planting. So based on seasonality and what those flowers are, certainly, but there will be a change, and it will also mirror and reflect what's happening at the booth as well. So that is, the booth is actually a town garden and on the garden tour, but then this would be a nice extension with the flowers there as well. And then we do have a proposed 2025 planting. So there's 4 seasonal changeouts. The investment and gift to the town would be in and around $3,200 in gift. But if you look below, you'll see that the labor has been gifted also from the Garden Club at no cost. There'll be watering, planting, 7 hours of watering, maintaining, around 30 weeks of actual maintenance. So the flowers will be beautiful up until spring of 2025. The ask is that we can actually put the planters right at the entrance of the park. In some cases, some of those flowers can be repurposed or reused and replanted into town gardens where we currently have some of the other flowers as well. So that's what we're here.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Corey?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this donation offer. The only question I have is, and I'm not sure if I'm mixing up my locations a little bit, is this a general area that like the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts set up on band concert nights? Is it this exact area, or is it a little bit to the side? And I'm only asking, is there any relocation of past history, past activities that happened in this general area that we're gonna make adjustments for, if we put these planters in?
I don't have any knowledge or history of where they set up. If you look at, the size and where the entrance is, certainly if we tucked it closer to where the entrance was, we just don't want to impact that gray apron. So it would actually look as two bookends as you were entering into the front. And certainly if they needed to set up, they could set up, right beside it and again, they're not physically, harnessed to the ground, so if we needed to scoot them and move them, certainly we could as well. They'll be heavy, because they'll be full of soil and plants, but it's to make it so that it looks like a beautiful front entry.
No? Okay, thank you.
Dean?
Thank you, Angela. These will look very nice, but apropos of what Corey was asking, it might be, and I'm very much in favor of doing this, might be worth a conversation with the Boy Scouts so that there are no surprises or negative impacts as you go forward with this.
When do they, is there history or is there
They do it on band concert nights, right?
on Friday
As far
nights?
as my memory serves me, is it's band concert nights, and because you can't sell things in the park, it's just on this little outskirting area that
Was
they've
that the
set up.
reason?
And I remember popcorn and glow sticks, glow sticks, okay, so, different activities in the past, but it's right in that kind of just outside the entrance area, so, and they may have pivoted over the years. I don't make it down there much as I used to. I'm kind of busy on my own shop, so I don't exactly know where they locate now, but my memory serves me is that they're in that general area.
They're sometimes in the rear where the parking lot is.
Down below.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I have seen them in that general area as well.
And technically, the planters would be inside the park where the fence actually in the apron ends, so they would have to be out either on that sidewalk or down at that parking lot. But definitely worth a phone call and just confirming, but.
I think this is a nice community collaboration, and I'm very supportive of it. Have the conversation with the Boy Scouts.
I just have, I don't want to be the skunk at the garden party here. I'm in favor of this. I think it's wonderful. I just have two questions. One is this heavy enough so that it's not going to be able to be rolled over, or, I mean, it's somehow going to be anchored, either by weight or otherwise?
I'm going to defer with I'll have Edie come in and speak about
Okay.
the actual weight once the
Okay.
soil is put into the containers.
Okay.
Edie Hamilton.
Edie Hamilton. These containers will end up being quite heavy. They'll have a lot of soil in them. We're planning to put hydrangeas in each one and plants around them. So I think they'll be rather massive, and they will not be blown over or knocked over.
Okay, I'm more worried about their being moved than blown over or knocked over
No.
or whatever. And then my last question is, you have a one-year plan here. What is the plan for after spring of 2025?
We would hope to continue. And,
Okay.
The initial expense is really the containers.
Okay, I'm supportive, and if there are no other comments, I
Move approval.
motion.
Second?
Okay, thank you, all in favor. Select Board Member Metters.
Aye.
Select Board Dykens.
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Select Board Member Nicastro.
Aye.
And Select Board Member Shell says aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing this.
They'll look pretty.
Okay, that brings us to the conversation on the annual town meeting review and discussion of follow-up items. I'm inclined to start with the public. Do we have any comments, or there seemed to be considerable interest from the public? I don't see anybody online.
Ms. Gibbs has her hand up, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Gibbs.
Yes, I think the purpose for asking this is so we could hear what the board has to say and then we could comment. So if you guys have your discussion, then if we have anything to say, I think that's when we do it.
Okay, we'll do it your way. Anybody from the board would like to start?
Sure.
Mr. Dykens?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, town meeting, there are good things and bad things. Things that I found, heartening, and certain things that I found disheartening. I think the notion that we passed an operating budget, capital budget, Monomoy Regional School budget, tech budget, were great. But I think you'd have to be a dunderhead to not feel a certain malaise, undercurrent of dissatisfaction, anger even, at times, which I found, bothersome and bothersome. And the one item I think kind of spilled over into other items was the Article 40 on the airport. And I hope I don't steal anybody's thunder, but I do think that article kind of set the stage, even though it was kind of late in the agenda, set the stage for the rest of the evening. We had 500 some odd voters there that quickly became 300 after that article was defeated. I have a little bit to say. I'm not on the airport commission, as everybody well knows, and I'm not an expert here. But I felt I wanted to speak so badly at that town meeting. I felt there was so much misinformation flying around, so much mistrust, and not understanding some of the issues. I've spoken to a couple folks that I really respect after the town meeting, and literally the quotes were, "We don't trust the airport commission. We don't trust what anybody's doing at the airport." Literally, and these are people that are intelligent, that ask good questions, and I respect immensely. So I think that folks have to understand that in terms of trimming around the airport, this town has had the right to trim, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we've had the right by law to trim trees that were unsafe around that airport, whether it was on the north end of the airport or the south end of the airport, by right. We just haven't done it. We haven't kept up with it. So I hope I'm speaking correctly there. And we have every right to do so to keep the airport safe. If anybody can possibly imagine in their wildest dreams that the Cape Cod Commission, working in concert with our Conservation Commission, would allow the Airport Commission or anybody or this town to clear cut 60 or 70 acres of woods around that airport, they don't get it. No one, those bodies are never going to approve that, and we would never approve that way. So to have folks stand up there and say passionately that the Airport Commission is going to clear cut 60 or 70 acres of woods is just mind-numbing to me, and not respond. I was so frustrated as not being able to respond to that, because working in a negotiated way between those two bodies, I can't imagine them approving a clear cut. It's just not going to happen, folks. If it does, then God forbid. The plane's landing there. And then the 92-year-old, I didn't get his name, to say that, we should nuke the airport, get rid of it. Mr. Roper used to call it the golden handcuffs, the FAA, our relationship with the FAA. And there's something to be said. If we were to nuke the airport and discontinue operations there and take it over for other purposes, I can't imagine the FAA, who has underwritten that airport to the tune of tens of millions of dollars over the years, would not have something to say about that. Number one. Number two, that airport is critical to med flights, to fishing, to commerce, to a whole bunch of different things in this town that are incredibly important to the overall well-being of this town. I believe it's a tremendous asset. And Dee Dee's, request this evening was interesting because, here it is, very timely, I thought. But we really take a hard look. But I can't imagine the FAA wouldn't weigh in heavily on if we decided to do another incredible purpose there, Council on Aging. Yeah, there's a lot of land, but it's an airport. So again, I'm not an expert, but I was screaming for some common sense on that issue because what I heard was not a lot of common sense at times. I heard passion, I heard other interests, I heard, folks worried about trees. I get it, we're all worried about trees. We want to be as protective as we possibly can, but I also heard an awful lot of misinformation that I really thought got out of control and kind of really, after that article, really spilled into a bunch of other articles with negativity. At some measure, especially even at the beginning, the town meeting to me, and I've been, quite frankly, I don't mean to take this over you guys, but I don't think I've missed a town meeting since I landed here. And I've never had the feeling of negativity that I felt from the start at that town meeting. There was an undercurrent of it. I could feel it palpably. And in years past, and I'm not wringing my hands here, but in years past, if the select board and the finance committee and the Chronicle all agreed on an article, it would normally pass. It would pass with some discussion, sometimes without discussion, but normally it would pass. And that is not the case anymore. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just not necessarily the case anymore. So I wonder, bottom line to me is, are we getting our message out? And are we articulating our positions well enough to get the vote out so that folks are willing to support those articles that we support? Because we supported many of those articles unanimously. And it's a bit mystifying, maybe it shouldn't be, but it's a bit mystifying that when we work so hard and scrutinize articles and present them as our warrant, as our listing of our priorities for the town, and for us to spend so much time so doing and then having them kind of nuked is somewhat disheartening. So I'm not wringing my hands about it. I just think that I went home immediately after the meeting and wrote notes because, I had felt so strongly about some items, especially the airport. I do think we should, I'm sure folks are gonna speak, but I do think we should break some of those that larger ask apart for projects, et cetera. And I'll stop there, you guys. But I think we need to do a better job, I guess, to get out our voice and make sure the town understands our voice or our position. Again, I was a bit frustrated not being able to speak at town meeting on certain articles, but I'll stop there. I'll have more to say later on, but I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several comments covering a multitude of issues. I'll try to make it brief. I mean, overall, I did not think it was an unsuccessful town meeting. We had 47 articles. Only 4 articles failed. 3 I would regard as especially consequential, and I want to talk about them separately. But the operating and capital budgets were approved without debate for perhaps as many as 5 years in a row. I haven't gone back and looked at them. Both school budgets passed without debate, as did the funding for our public safety union contracts, without debate. So I think in large part it was a very productive meeting. And I do commend the voters for coming out, expressing their voices and votes. That's the democratic process. I do think there were some messages that were spoken, and I share the concerns that Mr. Dykens talked about concerning the airport, which I'll mention in a moment. Let me take up the topics that, the articles that weren't passed. The waterfront bond, $11 million. Now, town meeting approved an $11 million bond some years ago. I don't recall that there was any debate or criticism of that at the time. And it functioned to fund a number of projects or begin the design on several projects, including 90 Bridge Street. Then we ran into COVID. And 90 Bridge Street became more complicated because, not just because Select Board Member Davis and I raised some concerns about the original cost, but if you remember, the upweller was always going to be there, and there was a new structure that was going to be built for an upweller. It was the boathouse coming into Chatham that complicated it and required a redesign. So COVID comes in, prices go up, and I think that contributed to the concern about the cost of the waterfront pond. But I did have a conversation with the town manager before town meeting, after the Finance Committee considered this article. And I know, although they endorsed it, they had a split vote, and they were concerned. And I said to the town manager, this approach I supported this time, but I wouldn't support it again in the future, because I don't think you can go to town meeting with what basically is a letter of credit and ask them to just give you a pile of money from which you can spend. Now, I know it's problematic not to take that approach, because I think I've had a conversation with Selectman Metters about this, that grant monies are more likely to come to us when the state knows we have this kind of flexibility. But I think we're going to have to go before town meeting with project by project, and we should start with 90 Bridge Street. I think that's an important project. And I think that, I don't know if there are any modifications that can be made that would reduce the cost. The problem is you're going to have to pay for the modifications, you're going to have to pay for the design of the modifications, and that's going to run up the cost. I'll leave that to the staff and to work out, with our consultants as need be, as we deal with the boathouse. The transfer station. I was really very disappointed that that did not pass. I really do think that is important for the safety of town staff and all those who use the transfer station, and for the environmental considerations and concerns of the neighborhood. I hope that we can come back and bring that to town meeting. If there is some value engineering that can be done with that, I'll defer to Mr. Feely and the staff and the town manager. The airport article. I don't know whether expanding the map or updating the map was fundamental to anything. I defer to the Airport Commission on that, whether as a matter of law, but as Mr. Dykens pointed out, the airport has been able to trim trees for upwards of 50 years. They just haven't done it in more recent times. And I think that it's important that the airport work on better ways, I guess, to communicate and educate what it really wants to do. I understand that there are only 21 properties that were going to be affected by tree trimming, or tree removal, excuse me. We know that there were about 180 additional properties that were notified, and I was insistent that there be some sort of a notification, and everybody knows that. But there was a lot of hyperbole discussed at the town meeting. And I think the suggestion that the airport should be closed is ridiculous. I will never support that. And if I were chair of this board, I would not even put the item on our agenda. I had a meeting with one of the members of one of the leading critics of the airport recently, and I said, with all your criticism, why don't you bring a petition article to town meeting to close the airport? Let town meeting decide once and for all. And I think you'll see an attendance that's a lot larger than what we had at this most recent town meeting. And I suspect very strongly that the airport, the continuation of the airport would be upheld. I feel very strongly about that, and I will defend the integrity and honesty of the Airport Commission members. And I want to bring up two other items related to housing. Oh, by the way, with respect to the waterfront bond and the transfer station, because there has been some comment around town as to whether the select board is interested in using or relying on the votes that took place at the election in support of those articles as a basis for calling a special town meeting, as we did at the senior center, I would not support that. The senior center was a different story. There was a one-vote difference. These articles lost by more than that. And if there are going to be new warrant articles on these items, there should be new ballot questions. Now, let me just say a couple of things about housing, and this is really a messaging thing. I think that the article dealing with the $750,000 contribution from the Community Preservation Fund to the Affordable Housing Trust was very telling. It was nearly defeated. And I think that sends a message, frankly, to the Affordable Housing Trust that there is considerable public angst and concern about how the issues of housing development and density are to be dealt with. And I don't want to read anything dramatically into it, but I think people should pay attention to that vote. When you have somebody like a John Carr standing up at town meeting who has a history of involvement, volunteer involvement in affordable housing, and is a past chair of the Community Preservation Committee, I think people should take notice. And the citizen petition at the end on Article 47, which I supported, I also supported the funding for the $750,000 as well. That was a somewhat complicated article, and unfortunately, it was basically placed at the last minute on our agenda. And I think the message there is you're asking for too much in too short a period of time. So those are that's my critique of town meeting. It's kind of a mixed critique, but overall, I mean, I didn't feel as badly as others did. I was disappointed, very disappointed in the bonding articles. I was disappointed in the airport article because I thought it made sense. I still think it makes sense, and I think that, unfortunately, a lot of incorrect information was put out about it, or at least people didn't understand the significance of the Airport Commission's efforts at safety. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to have taken so long.
Corey, go ahead.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm not going to restate a lot of what my colleagues have already said, but I will go over a couple things. One, with the airport, I am not of the opinion of taking any action to close the airport, but I am of the opinion there are some reasonable concerns that have been put out there that we can certainly have discussions either between us or the Airport Commission to get some clear facts out there, because I do think the airport is an asset of the town. But I do think there's some concerns about unknown factors for growth down the road, whether they're true, they're not true. We got to get ahead of that and clarify what the future plan is for the airport. I think those are reasonable conversations to have. With the transfer station, I've been a big supporter of the transfer station. The elements of our staff, safety, accommodations, lockers, break rooms, et cetera, that are long overdue. I understand, this transfer station project is the price is ticking up as we go along every year after year. But we have to get these elements taken care of at some way, shape, or form, because we owe it. We made a promise to our staff that we would start addressing this, and we need to keep that promise because the accommodations are subpar, and that's a nice way of saying it. And I applaud all our staff members who have stayed there working under those conditions, because it really is not ideal. The waterfront bond, asking for another 11 million plus, doesn't surprise me. I know there's probably consensus or thought that we're gonna come by, article to article or project to project. I still would like to talk to staff, because I still have some concerns about having some level of flexibility to allow us better opportunities for grant funding. The Seaport Economic Seaport Economic Council has given an excess of $1 million, I believe it's like $1.5 million on these projects. And I truly believe a lot of that factor is that we have some flexibility to pivot and move from one project to another in a reasonable amount of time. So we need to come up with a balance. I don't want to do project to project if I can help it. I really don't want to give up that funding that we've been so successful with. And frankly, I think we would continue to have success, take a real hard look at that, because I don't want to lose out on grant funding, because we've been doing that for the past. Housing, obviously the message was sent out. There's, kind of open up some conversations to the public. That vote was, where'd it go? The funding vote was 261 to 247. That's extremely close. That was a message sent to the board, understood and heard, and I think we can accommodate communications, transparency, and involvement with the public. I'm supportive of that, and I think the rest of the board will be. And finally, the citizens petition, Article 47. My analysis of that is kind of the mistake. I served on the planning board years ago before I was on the select board. And the one lesson I learned early is we put these articles together, and there's the mechanics of crafting an article. And then you got to have an educational element, and then you bring it down to meeting. It was done too short of a window. Article had merit, but unfortunately, it was not vetted in a manner that I think the public would have liked to have seen. Kind of finessed it a little bit, maybe it amended certain components of it, but it was just the way it was approached and brought to the town meeting that I think was one of the major elements of why it didn't move forward and was indefinitely postponed. But I think with the correct and proper discussions, that may have a future at another town meeting. So I do appreciate all those who attended town meeting. It was definitely a different tone than I've felt in a long time, and I've attended my fair share of town meetings.